Well, welcome to the first of the Royal Ocean Racing Club's live updates from the Sevenstar Round Britain and Ireland race. I'm race reporter Louay Habib, and with me is the race director Chris Stone. Chris, it's been a slow start, but the devil's in the detail.
Yeah, it sure is, Louay. I mean, it's been an interesting few days, I think we can say. Weather's changed considerably across the course. From the start, where we had a little bit more sea breeze than we anticipated, and till we find some big holes south of Ireland.
Yeah, okay. That's a real resume, but there's a hell of a lot that's been going on, as you say, but we'll get into that in a minute. Let's go first off, Chris, to the line honours, and I'll just zoom in there.
Yeah, well, look, line honours between the two Mockers. I mean, it's been fascinating early part of the race. We saw a kind of an early shift from Ollie Hare racing early lead to Medallia a little further into the course as they passed the south of England. Yeah, and then unfortunately after that, Ollie Hare Racing's had to retire mid Celtic Sea.
And have we got any news on that, Chris?
Yeah, look, they'd phoned earlier that said they had an injury on board, and they were happy to return to Falmouth, where they were going to get some assistance from the RNLI. They'd taken some telemed service instructions as well, but they said they're all safe and comfortable and returning to port. I think last seen getting close back to the Isle of Wight.
Great. Okay, so it's positive news coming from Oliver Hare Ocean Racing, and we wish all of them well on board, as I'm sure everyone listening to this does. That leaves Medallia out in front. They had a dose of the slows trying to get round.
They sure did. I mean, that high pressure system's really crept into their course now, and I guess overnight they've had a big struggle trying to get through that, and we could just see by the distance they've covered. I think the distance they've covered at that time was only about 60 miles in the last 24 hours.
Wow!
So for a boat of that kind of ilk is a pretty slow and grueling slog. So yeah, we've definitely seen their estimated finish now drift out a little further than we'd expected.
And what's on Pip Hare's mind? I mean, she's got a cracking team on that boat, but what's on Pip Hare's mind right now? What's the next goal? Yeah,
well, look, I think the big question for them at the moment is weather and what happens with this high pressure system. There's a convergence zone to the west of Ireland between what is effectively a pretty serious low pressure system and the high pressure system that's we've seen in the south of Ireland. That convergence zone means we've got a mixture of extremely slow conditions and then some moderate conditions. So she's got to navigate her way through that. I think one of the trickier parts to this, of course, is the fact that she needs to maintain a certain speed to get ahead of that high pressure band with no wind in it. And then into the low pressure band that's going to take her further north. I think it's going to be a tricky time for them because I think all the models agree that as they move north up the west coast of Ireland, that kind of high pressure system's hanging with them, or that little convergence zone where there's no wind. So they're going to have to really fight hard to get out of that. I think that's their trick, and I think if they can't get out of it, it might be another close down for them and the fleet joining them.
And we did see a Facebook post from Medallia that said they think they're ahead of their routing and they might make that low pressure.
Yeah, well, I think optimistically, I think that's pretty good for them at the moment, and that will, if they do make it, they'll blast north straight away. I mean, I think that's probably a bigger issue for the rest of the fleet behind them because they'll be left for dead, so to speak.
Okay. And I remember you commenting this morning saying they made a real good job of getting through that area of little wind around the Skelligs, didn't they? Yeah,
look, I mean, so we, classically you might see some sea breezes during the day, but of course you get into the evening, you've got to be careful that doesn't close out. And they'd came in at the right time. It's obviously warmed up quite a bit in Ireland, but they've gone back out again and seem to be kind of threaded their way through that pretty well and unscathed. But it's been slow. Like I said, it was only 64, 65 nautical miles covered in the last 24 hours.
Which is desperately slow for a boat of that performance.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right, Chris, let's move on and let's have a look at IRC 1. And we've got We'll just get those up for now, those guys.
Sure.
And just bear with me, because I know that I have to do that twice. Okay, so this is just the boats in IRC1. And we've got a leading pack there. And right up there, I've got to give them a big shout out, is the young team. So that's Pegasus of Northumberland. Let's talk about them first. We saw Ross Hobson going inshore, making a big gain, literally pointing straight at the Fastnet Rock. And then, as you can see from that orange track, putting literally a 90-degree turn west to come back out. How did he fare with that one, Chris?
Yeah, look, he's actually done okay. I think the point there is he took the inshore bite early and probably avoided the area as he went into the evening or the early part of the morning where breeze was going to be an issue. I mean, we look at some of the other boats around them, like Bank von Brenham, probably didn't, unfortunately, we're a little further behind Pegasus and Northumberland, didn't come out so harshly and early enough.
Yeah.
And then they've now paid the price for that, unfortunately for them.
Yeah, okay. And we're just picking up Bank von Bremen there. And as you say, probably didn't go in as aggressively and have fallen a little way behind.
Yeah.
But a big shout out to, we've got a Paulby Marine, the Danish little canting keeler, 35-footer.
Yeah, Greg Elliott, 35 SS, great little boat, canting keeler. I mean, an absolute weapon in the right conditions. But they've hung there as well. I mean, that's pretty incredible for them. They've done really well out of that. So,
and interestingly, they didn't go for that inshore route. They stayed offshore, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. And that probably, they took a pretty early dip out even before the Lizard, actually, to be honest. And they've done pretty well out of that. And they've kept south of the run line, basically. That's where they've managed to keep up there.
Yeah.
I think also too that probably keel helps in some of these conditions, not always, but I mean in these kind of conditions, it's going to be difficult. But they've obviously had enough pressure to make that work a little bit. Yeah. So that's pretty good. Yeah,
good work there from the Danish team, and
I think Hasper Hamburg, should I say, have done really well as well. I think they're interesting to look at them. And they took the offshore route. At the Lizard, they'd gone inside, and they'd come out, but they've gone pretty south in terms of that kind of routing. I mean, they're probably one of the furthest south, to be honest, and they've caught up a bit of ground and caught up with Pegasus in that regards.
Yeah, and they're actually leading IRC1 at the moment on corrected time.
Yeah, just nudging ahead.
Yeah, so they're going well there. So that's a little resume on IRC1. Let's have a look at the Class 40s, because we've had a right old mix up there.
Yeah, that's fascinating look at that sailing. Really, I mean, the boat that keeps coming back to the front, both Palinad and Tequila. So, I mean, they keep having bites out of each other.
Yes.
It's kind of really interesting to see how competitive they are. Funnily enough, the Kite took an early dive out to the south after coming around St Cat's, obviously when the tide shifted there.
Mm-hmm.
And for a while they were looking pretty good, but unfortunately, there was obviously some change in pressure after moving a little further down the coast, and those guys who were inside of them were able to just kind of motor in front of them, basically. That just kind of pushed them further forward, and unfortunately for Kite a little further back. Yeah,
and we can see the line of those three lined up there. You've got Kite, you've got Palinad 3 and Masulo, and they all went on roughly the same line and stopped. I mean, they just run out of breeze. But as you say, Tequila has done a really good job there, hey?
Yeah, really good. Yeah, I mean, that's an impressive move to get them through on that. I mean, look, there's still also, too, we've got to point out, they're all really close together. Even this far, they're all sticking together, which is amazing. There's lots of different designs in that fleet, and lots of different ages of boats as well. So that makes it kind of fascinating to think that they can all stay together like that.
Yeah, and we did get a bit of chat from Antoine Magret on Palinad 3. and he was explaining that the San Manuel design that he's got is really designed for transatlantic, put down the bow, go, in big breeze, while some of these other boats are, shall we say, better suited for light conditions. So to be holding on with them, he's actually quite happy with how things are going. Obviously frustrated after taking the lead and then seeing the boats come up behind with the breeze, but this ain't going to be the last shutdown.
Yeah, and I think that also goes to his IRC result at the moment as well, because he's one of the few Class 40s that is in the IRC handicap, and he races really well within that. And if we look at the results, he's doing pretty well in that as well.
Okay, okay. And just a last one to talk about here is Influence.
Yeah, snakes and ladders going for them. It's been a tricky one, but I think the nail in the coffin, shall we say, in the last 24 hours would be the dive inside onto the coast of Ireland, which we talked about before with IRC1.
Yeah,
that was unfortunately not going to pay off well, and they got stuck there and left behind, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So,
I think they got Pam Lee on board. She wanted to take them sightseeing, see our country.
Yeah, exactly.
She'll probably not like me saying that, but they were doing so well in that early part. They made a massive gain, but then lost the breeze and then had to come out to the west, and the gauge has not worked for them there, and they've looked like they're falling behind. Maybe things will change.
Well, if you just look at distance sailed as well, a classic example, as I talked about before, Tequila put in 96 miles in the last 24 hours. And you got Influence, did 66, at the lowest of the fleet. So, they've got hurt really badly, 30 miles in that. So,
yeah. There's a cracking video you can see on the RORC social media channels of from Influence, which is from right up the rig with the dolphins flying around it. Check that one out. It's on RORC Instagram and Facebook, and also in the live blog. So that's a real cool video. Okay. Well, over half the fleet are in IRC two-handed. Let's go on to those teams.
Yeah, Diablo. Nick Martin has just strengthened his way around that. Nick's doing an amazing job on IRC two-handed. He's led for a long time now and kept that going. So good on Nick for that.
Yeah, and just another shout out for his partner in crime there. That's Cal Finlayson, who's from Scotland, and he's certainly keen to get up to the top there. And the thing is with Nick, he has won a few events, but this would really be a big one for him. He's done 9 Rolex Fastnet races two-handed. That's a hell of an amount of experience.
It sure is. And Nick's a busy guy, so he's got to fit in a lot of sailing to go with it. So, congratulations to them. They're really doing well. Yeah,
let's just have a look at the leaderboard at the moment for IRC two-handed. So we've got Diablo leading, Muzungu second, the two Sams, North and White, and then we have Bellino in third place. And we've got a lot of Sunfast 3300s in this race, but none of them are in the top 3 at the moment. But moving up the leaderboard, we can see there's Wild Pilgrim, which is Daniel Jones and John Tyrrell, and also Shirley Robertson and Dee Kafari on Rocket, and also the father and son combo of Ellie and Jim Driver on Chili Pepper. And I think it's fair to say, Chris, that these aren't really the right conditions for a Sunfast 3300, are they?
No. Look, I think you look at Muzungo, that's a JPK 1080, great boat for those kind of conditions. And again, the 3600, which is, I guess the older version of the 3300, but, again, it's more a specialist boat, and in these kind of conditions with a little extra waterline works really well. Yeah. So it's no surprise to see them up the front. Yeah.
But you can't get more competitive than Shirley Robertson and Dee Kafari. We put together a little video of them before the start of the race, and we have updated that with a little audio we got this morning. So enjoy this.
It would be incredible to be successful in this race. I feel I'm not terribly experienced. I'm probably relying on and Dee's knowledge to get me round. It will have meant that we've pushed hard. It will have meant that we've made some, great decisions, and that we've really looked after our 3300. So it will be, it'll be right up there.
Boom, drop mic. What else is there to say? It'll be massive. Rocket is crossing the Irish Sea, all good on board. Been really difficult light winds, but we can still see our fellow 3300 sailors with us, and we've been hanging on as best we can to a little pack of 3600s. It's great to be racing in company, and the weather has been glorious.
Yeah, some cracking comments then. Good to hear from Dee. That was literally this morning. It's not Sunfast 3300 weather, but if they can stay in that pack and then get into that better pressure later on, they're going to do a lot better. There's a hell of a lot more golf in this hole, isn't there?
Yeah,
Chris?
and we look at two-handed as a great example of the weather actually at the moment, because you've got some big boats from all and some small boats across all classes, not just in IRC2 there, and there's only 30 miles that separate the entire fleet in two-handed. So
yeah, incredible.
Incredibly close, and those compression zones we talked about before, really coming together and pushing the fleet back together. So reset, the classic reset we see in racing.
Yeah, and as we saw in the Class 40 fleet above them, where we saw Influence lose 30 miles, it can be a proper reshuffle.
Yeah, I think the concern more broadly, Louay, for the two-handed fleet, making sure they can get into some weather early.
Yeah.
We want to make sure they're out of that high pressure system. Seems to be moving north along the west coast of Ireland.
Yeah. And just going to pick out Chili Pepper here, making a little bit of a move to the east or north, whichever we want to put it, of the pack there, and maybe giving up a few miles in doing that to get round to Bull Rock. But we also had a little catch up with Ellie Drive before. Now she's only 20 years of age. She's racing with her father, and she's still studying at Southampton Uni. But we had a little chat with her afterwards, and you can just I'll just play it for you.
To me, it's such a big challenge. It's one of the few opportunities to do a big race like this around the UK without doing something like a transatlantic. And it's going to be a good step up from the Fastnet that we did last year. So, me and Dad sailed together. We trust each other so much, bring out the best in each other. We make all the decisions together, and we hardly fall out. So it's going to be a long race, 3 times as long as the Fastnet. There's going to be lots of navigational problems to overcome with all the TSSs and the shoals and the rocks. Just going around the top of Scotland, around the top of Muckleflugger, which is going to be, it's further north than the Capes are south, and especially going around Dover, and it's going to be quite complicated. I think Mum will be incredibly happy when we are around, because she's going to be watching Yellow Brick every mile of the race and probably not get as much sleep as we're getting. Going to be quite tough to get round. So it's been a big adventure to work together and to sail around Britain and Ireland. It's going to be amazing, and I really look forward to it.
And moving on, Chris, we'll go to IRC3, and a big shout out to Morning After, the SNS 34, going pretty well.
Yeah, Stuart Greenfield and the RORC Admiral, Mike Greville on board. Gosh, that's amazing, isn't it? They're really doing well, actually.
Well,
they're up.
Yeah,
we're up with AJ Wonderlust.
Yeah.
And Sniffix Dry, they're all there together, which actually probably can see each other on the course at the moment.
Yeah.
So doing pretty well, really good actually.
Well, we'll have a look in a minute, because the actual leaderboard has updated while we've been online, so we don't actually know for sure, but they were doing extremely well, put it that way. And just to fill you in for those who don't know, a Morning After is an SNS 34. We're pretty sure it's the oldest boat in the race. It's the Guardian, I should say, is Stuart Greenfield, and they're leading the RORC season for IRC4 by a massive amount. Stuart's racing for the Sevenstar Round Britain Island race with Louise Clayton, who's his normal two-handed partner, but he's also got RORC Admiral Mike Greville and Frederick Neville Jones on board. And this boat was the sister ship to Morning Cloud, race called the Rolex Sydney Hobart. Do you know that one, Chris?
I don't know anything about that, Louay. Yeah. Morning Cloud, definitely. I mean, a lot of SNSs, in history for offshore, so good choice to go around with.
And for this race at the moment, very good choice. We'll have a look at the overall leaderboard in a bit, but I definitely want to pick out another proven winner, which is Richard Palmer's Jangada. He's sailing with Rupert Holmes, and they're also doing extremely well in IRC3. They're also doing well in two-handed, and a more westerly position for them. There's a bunch of boats that have gone out that way. Obviously, that's what they decided to do in their playbook. You can see they've moved the way west, Chris.
Yeah, they have. I mean, I think the problem possibly at the moment for Jangada is they're in between two zones and probably trying to get into the inside a little bit further. Their angle pushing them around the corner means that they're going to need to come up a little bit more, and I think that's probably hurt them a little bit at the moment.
Okay.
You can see with them slowing down. I think that's quite interesting. Whereas the guys on the inside, which include AJ Wonderlust, Morning After, and Sniff Extra, I mean, they're still charging along at the moment for them, so they're doing really well.
Yeah.
Polish Manx also too is just sitting behind a little bit further, and I think Jangada's just unfortunately in that pocket. We're going a little bit slower for a period of time, but I think they'll rejoin the breeze and move further forward quickly.
Yeah. We wish them very well, and I think it's time to have a look at that leaderboard. Or shall we have a bit of fun first? Shall we show the magic cake on? Let's show the magic cake on Gavin Howe's Tigris, who's sailing with Maggie Adamson, and they sent us a bit of video and we put it together. Because after 3 days at sea, you need to have a bit of fun on board.
Yeah, I love cake.
Another 3600.
So a bit of fun on board there on Tigris.
And you can tell by that footage, Louay, there's not a lot of breeze when the sun sets and just before it rises. I mean, it's absolutely flat out there.
Yeah. So what you're looking at right now is the ranking on IRC overall on day 4 of the Sevenstar Round Britain and Ireland race, and I think this updated at midday today.
It should have. Yeah, definitely should have.
So there you have it. Morning After, Stuart Greenfield's SNS 34 leading.
Yeah, I don't think it has updated at the moment, though.
Okay.
I don't expect a lot to change actually from those kind of rankings. Morning After is still moving along at about 4.5 knots, which is pretty reasonable given some of the other competitors she's around. As we already know, Pip's in a bit of a hole and pretty slow, working away out of that aboard Medallia, and then the Class 40 guys are also trying to get their way through that, as Pip did overnight. So,
yeah. But at the moment, surprise, surprise, it's a little boat race, but we've got a long way to go yet, haven't we?
Yeah, the Great Reset happened. It's going to happen a couple more times, I think, with the forecast the way it is.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, all models agree. I mean, it's one of those rare occasions where we see all the forecasts, the European, the global forecast, and the localised stuff all agreeing with what's happening. So, yeah.
Okay, well, that's it for the day 4 update. We'll be doing more of these updates. The next one is scheduled for Saturday, but if you have subscribed to our Facebook page at the Royal Ocean Racing Club, you will get a reminder that that's going to be happening. But it looks like it's going to be Saturday. We do the next update, and by then will we have more pressure? Will the big boats be winning overall, and will the Sunfast 3300s start to be doing well in the IRC two-handed? Thanks for watching, and there will be a replay of this after a few minutes, I would say, not an awful lot more.
This this is not a race for novices. This is the toughest race in the RORC calendar, experienced sailors only. Everyone in the fleet has done their miles, tough racing to get to this point. But for us, that's critical in making a safe race.
It's a fantastic sailors race. It's 3 fast nets. It's absolutely brilliant.
One of the most incredible races we can have here. It's long, it's tough, it's long, it's cold. You can have some bad weather. Very tricky.
Amazing. It's going to be magical for me.
Sevenstar Round Britain and Ireland race is for me the ideal offshore race. It's longer than the Fastnet, so you really get into it, yet lots of waypoints, you turn lots of corners, very varied conditions, and it's much more exciting than a transatlantic or something like that.
Really looking forward to doing this race with the team. It's new for me and it's the only time that I will race Medallia with a full crew. I think it's a really challenging race. It's tactical. The weather is difficult, lots of different weather systems. The North Sea is full of tides and gas platforms and traffic and wind farms. There's absolutely everything jam-packed into quite a small course, so why would I not do it?
This could be 2 weeks of racing, and therefore you've got to pace yourself. You typically get tough conditions at some point in this race, a lot of navigational obstacles, and quite often we get a lot of retirements.
The statistics prove it. 25 double-handed entries in the past, only 9 have ever finished. So I like a challenge. Rise to the challenge.
To win in this fleet of double-handed sailors would be incredible, because there's some real talent out there, and I think at the moment there's a lot of boats that could take that prize.
The pressure is really going to be on the decision making. The critical thing, where are we going to go when we get off to the south side of the Isle of Wight? Is anybody going to make a break for the French coast, or are they going to stay on the mainland shore and work their way up? Remember, that's not easy. You've got the tidal races, particularly Portland Bill and Start Point, before you get to the Lizard and beyond. So I think yes, they're going to want to be going fast, but they've got to make the right decision if they want to win this race.
It's wishful thinking saying that we aim to win, but I don't like to be lost, so there's really only one way to go, and it's all up to play for.